All right, we are here talking today about Greek philosophers. Then the things that make you go, hmm. All right, so kicking it out to you from my digital cell, still waiting somebody to break me out this prison. Maybe one of these guys will think it up. So let's talk about them. First off, what is a philosopher? Philosophy is like the love of wisdom. It's Philosophers are those who they ponder over the questions of life, the universe, and they try to figure out what makes things tick. Why is this like this? Why do people do that? Why? Ask why. And so they thought over all these questions, and your Greek philosophers, made a lot of bounds and leaps in our ways of thinking through these philosophers, and these philosophers taught what they knew. They would start a school, and they would pass it on to other thinkers and teach them how to think. And you would build up these schools of thought, and each would add on. Each new class or generation would add on to the thinkings and the ideas of those who came before them. Uh, you had a group called Sophicists. They were professional teachers that traveled city to city. These guys, would go around and go from this city to the next neighboring city and so forth, and they would teach. And they would teach what they learned. They would teach these ideas. Think how far we've come in education alone. That I'm now teaching you over the internet. So rather than me traveling and going from city to city, I'm reaching just as many, if not more, people through this technology now. Did not believe that the gods influenced people's lives. Remember, back in this time, a lot of people believed that people's lives were influenced by the gods. Especially, in Greek, they had their mythology and all the mythologies that we've talked about previously. But they didn't believe that this happened. They believed that there was scientific reasoning behind what these influences on people's lives, and they believed that there was no absolute right or wrong. Um, so that the whole world was a whole lot of gray, not just black and white. So the first one we're going to talk about Socrates, Socrates. 469 to 399 BC. We put the questions marks here because we're not exactly sure that this is the exact date, but we know it's pretty close. He was an Athenian sculptor, and he believed in the absolute truth. Okay, um, he believed in knowing what was really going on. And he came up with, you might have even heard of this because we still talk about this today, the Socratic method. Teaching and we teach by asking questions and make students use reason. So if your teacher's ever asked you, and I know I have, um, questions, it's like, why is this? And then you answer. Well, that's teaching via the Socratic method. Okay, and by leading you from an easy question into a much harder question by asking you a series of questions, that is this type of teaching that Socrates came up with. In 399 BC, he was accused of teaching the youth to rebel by making them question everything, by making them look beyond normal superstitions and traditions. Uh, People thought that he was teaching them to rebel when he was just teaching them to seek this absolute truth that he believed in. Um, but he was found guilty, and so therefore he was sentenced to death. And he had the chance; he could have fled, but he didn't. And he was sentenced to die by poison, not by listening to a lot of 80s glam rock, but by actually taking poison. Okay, so and just as you don't get it, this is a band from the 80s. Yeah. But he took his poison because he believed that this was the best thing to do. Uh, Maybe not dying, but not fleeing, and that actually standing there and standing up for his principles, that he would best serve his principles. Well, after him, One of his students came up and came to be one of the large thinkers, Plato, in 427 to 347 BC. He was a student of Socrates. Um, he wrote the Republic, and it explains his ideas of government. He said that there are three groups of people: philosopher kings, and these are the people who ruled using logic and wisdom. There were warriors, those who defended the state with courage, and then everyone else. Those who produced food, made clothing, shelter, the people who did all the menial tasks. You had the philosopher kings, they were ruling. I am in charge. The warriors. And then, everyday Joe. And he believed men and women should have equality. He believed that there should be equality. So he was a champion of women's rights. Yes, ladies, I know you get tired of hearing back in all this ancient talk that you didn't have any rights. Well, this guy right here, you should mark his name down because he fought for your rights. He thought you should have equality or equal rights with men. Well, along came another student, and this was a student of Plato. Okay, remember Plato was a student of Aristotle. Of Socrates, and Aristotle was a student of Plato. Um, he actually went on to teach Alexander the Great. So you can catch a line that Alexander teaching came from Socrates because it went down that line. Aristotle had advances in science and observations. He also wrote Politics, which said that divided government into three types. He said there was the first person rule, which was a tyrant or a monarchy. There was the few people rule, which is an oligarchy or an aristocracy. And then the many people rule, which is a democracy. And we've talked about all three types of these. Well, he laid it out in this writing of his, Politics. He also believed that the best of this would be a mixture of the few and of the many. So a mixture of this and this, which some would argue is our representative form of government, or a republic that we have, in which the many elect the few. Okay, like that we as a democracy, as a republic or a representative democracy, we don't vote on everything. We vote on a few people, and then those few people go make the rules. Okay, so some people say that we are this best mixture of government that Aristotle argues for. Um, and apparently I have a typo here, but the rich were the few and the poor were the many. He believed that the rich were the few and the poor were the many. And a few other philosophers of note. And I'm going ahead and tell you I probably will butcher these names like I was a butcher. Yeah, horrible analogy there, but Aristarchus. He said that the sun is the center of the universe and that the earth revolves around it. Say, here's the sun, and the earth goes around the sun. This was a bad thing back in the day. Um, because we believed that the earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around the earth, because we were so full of ourselves, so man, I'm getting tongue tied today, egocentric, that we thought we are the center of the universe. And nowadays we know that is so far from the truth. Um, but this is a guy who first said that the sun is the center of the universe. Eratosthenes said the earth is round. So, all you people who've been taught since you were little kids that Christopher Columbus actually thought he might sail off the edge of the earth, and people were afraid of that in the 1400s, you've been lied to. Okay? Anybody who was anybody knew for hundreds of years, that the earth is round. Okay? It was figured out back in ancient Greece. Um, only really dumb, superstitious people did believe the Earth was flat. Okay, so for the most part, everybody knew the Earth was round. He even calculated the circumference of the Earth within 185 miles. We know now today the circumference of the Earth, and this guy was only 185 miles from being right. So that tells you this dude was really good. All right. And he calculated the distance from the sun, from the Earth to the sun, and from the Earth to the moon. And he was real close with all this. I mean, it astounds me at how close back then that he was able to figure this out. And then Archimedes. Most of us have heard of Archimedes. He discovered the value of pi. That's that 3.14 da 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 that goes on and on and on. People love to see how far they can tell you the points of pi. Um, he also invented many weapons. You watch MythBusters; they keep trying to do Archimedes' death ray on there a couple of times. Um, you're supposed to have created Archimedes fire and several other things. Also, Archimedes screw is a type of moving water to move water upwards. Um, and you've probably seen these before. And we'll talk about the Archimedes actually in another um, lesson as well about some more Greek thinkers. Um, but until then, deuces.